Hello, I now have the German Leaving Cert higher level paper in my hand, and you will all be relieved to have that paper behind you as we come to the end of the week. This paper this year would be a step up from the last few years that we've seen in the German higher level paper. It's a paper that would put students on the spot, and a lot of students would have to be inventive and creative, especially in the written section. It's typical of previous years. There's no surprises in the format, there's no surprises in the types of questions that students are asked, and it was a paper this year that was slightly detached from covering the oral themes of previous years. So less oral material was covered here, but students who had a good command of the German language from the oral would score well here, but again would have to be inventive and creative. The first comprehension was a very topical current theme on gaming and a 15-year-old becoming a professional in his gaming world, and then it describes how that becomes less of an importance to him as he falls in love as he hits 16. It's a journey through the language, is very accessible to all students and very relevant theme, so students could identify with it, and I would feel that every student here would have had scope. So definitely the first comprehension was well laid out, questions were typical of previous years, and there was something here for everybody. As we move into the grammar, which is based on the first comprehension, this was a step up from the last 3 or 4 years, nearly more like the grammar of 2019, where you had to label tenses and put in adjectival ending. So challenging for all students in general, but at least students had a choice, so therefore most students should be happy enough having completed it. But there was a bit of a step up from last year and the previous year's grammars. The second comprehension was an unusual topic, one that students would not be very familiar with, and is about a student who studied electrical engineering and computer science and who went to work on their first work experience in the Antarctic. And so the whole level of content and material would be less accessible. There was more difficult vocabulary here, and I would have said that questions were typically laid out as previous years, but more challenging for all students in general. Some students would definitely be linguistically challenged here. But again, no surprises in the format of questionings and layout. As we move into the written section, the Äußerung zum Thema, personally, I felt would put students on the spot. Not as easy to do the first one, which was on extreme conditions. So students here would have to step up a little bit on the creative side, would have to be very inventive in their ideas, and less accessibility to oral material again. Students had to look at the relevance of having a daily diary and what they thought of the relevance of that in the modern world, to looking at how they would spend a year in the Antarctic, to extreme weather conditions. So definitely putting you on the spot. So a huge level of inventiveness required here for all students. As we come to the last section, which is the letter and short essay, we have here a choice of 4 out of 5 in the letter and 5 out of 6 in the longer essay. And written topics here again, nothing here that you could have prepared beforehand or learnt off by heart, which is typical of the German paper, which is absolutely perfect. Just the topics were a little bit unpredictable, like opening in the letter, talking about breaking, but many students might not have known what that meant at the Olympics. So students, again, would have to think outside the box. Topics in general, you had to talk about what would you do if you did a monthly cinema card, a lot of past tense in the letter, and shopping without any shop assistance. So lots of stuff challenging you of not anything that I could rote learn, which is also something that you could ever do in German. So just to conclude on the paper itself, I said it was a little bit more challenging overall than I would have seen in previous years, and it definitely asked students to be a little bit more creative and inventive, and you had to think on your feet, as they say. And you had, and the last part, old people and what kind of an initiative you would get involved in to give them computer skills, and living alone, the advantage of that and living at home. So overall, you can smile now, the paper is finished, and like every German paper, it always balances out, but overall, may I wish you all the best of luck, enjoy your weekend, and Friday the 13th hasn't been as bad as we could have been, and may you all have the best of luck in the rest of your exams.